After interviewing some of the best founders in San Francisco, this time we're flying to Berlin to meet a guy who raised $1 billion for his company wefox, valued at $4.5 billion at its peak. Then investors pushed him out. Most founders would have stopped right there, but not Julian Teicke. Instead of giving up, he created Berlin's biggest startup hub where more than 800 founders work in one building to create the next wave of generational companies. Julian believes the reason startups fail isn't strategy or skill, but the nervous system holding founders back. In this episode, we go inside the Delta to find out if Berlin has a real shot at becoming Europe's Silicon Valley. Let's go.
Julian.
Thank you. How are you? How's your day?
To see you. Yeah, very good, very good. Happy to have you here.
We're excited to be here and have a look at what you're doing at the Delta. Let's have a quick look.
Great.
First, how's your day going? How have you spent your day? What are you working on these days?
Right now, it's a lot of work with kind of my portfolio companies. So I'll show you upstairs. I have founded 5 companies in the last 12 months, and there's a lot of work to do. But it's fun. It's what I love to do. So. Yeah.
In what areas are these companies focused right now? Is there any focus you have, or just across the range what you really feel passionate about?
You know, the main thesis that I'm like an expert on is obviously financial services. So it's not like the hot like deep tech, space tech, you know, defense tech stuff. That's not my area. But within that space of financial services, I think there's so many huge opportunities right now. And I think the whole topic of agentification of financial services and running financial services with software margins is a big topic. So, for example, I launched a agentic audit company. So like a PwC, KPMG, there's a lot of manual work, and I think agents can take care of the manual work, and we can run a better service with better margins, similar to commercial insurance and insurance brokerage that I've started. So kind of financial services, and then one of the 5 companies I launched is like a real passion project of mine, which has nothing to do with financial services, but is more a topic around nervous system regulation.
2 topics I love to get into more in just a bit. But right now, when did you move into this venue? It opened a few years ago?
So we moved in 18 months ago. Mm-hmm. And by now I can show you a little bit around here. This is a campus in Neukölln in Berlin. The way to think of it is, so this is our co-creation space. We do like a lot of hackathons here. We do a lot of kind of events with unicorn founders to give back to young founders. So the whole place down here is designed to kind of give back and teach. And then the first floor is the partnership with the Code University, which is an amazing university. The whole idea is you don't, graduate, you start a company before graduating. And it has created, some of the best entrepreneurs of kind of the newest generation. Like Langdog, like Super Chat. So there's a couple of great, entrepreneurs coming from the university.
Was this an accident that you said like, oh, Code University, let's just sit here together? Or was it really planned and intentional that you had a partnership with Tom? Or
So, I mean, we've always been in touch, and they have looked at this building while we looked at the building, and then it obviously was a fit. We thought about partnerships very early on. And then the way to think of it is the second floor would be the floor for like super early companies, like pre-idea, like 1 or 2 people offices, small offices. Then you go to the 3rd floor, a little bit bigger offices. We just opened the 4th floor, which is maximum team size 20 people. Right, and then we have the 5th floor.
Move up the stages.
Right, and you go up and up. And then we have the 5th floor, which is not opened yet. I can show you. It's the nicest floor though. And at the end of the day, so we will have 1,700 super early stage entrepreneurs here. This will be the biggest early stage campus in Europe. And what we do here is we provide founders with everything they need to increase their chances of success. The type of stuff I would have loved to have when I started off.
Quick note before we get back to Julian. Big thanks to our friends at WorkOS for helping us make these videos happen for the next generation of founders. Picture this, you've built your product, got your first customers, and now an enterprise wants to buy. Huge moment for your team until their IT team sends over the checklist. SSO, SCIM, directory sync, audit logs, a bunch of work for you to be enterprise ready. The good news, you don't need months of engineering work to get there. You can just use WorkOS, the fastest path to become enterprise ready and unlocking your growth. I've used it myself for years, and the world's best companies like Anthropic, OpenAI, and Cursor all run on WorkOS. You can get started with literally 1 prompt to your coding agent and never worry about authentication again. And the best part, your first 1 million monthly active users are completely free. Check them out at opencompany.cloud/workOS. Now, back to Julian.
how do I find the right team members? How do I find the right talent in general? How do I find the right investors? How do I find mentors that have been there, done that before? How do I find generally also the right coaches, that can help me with, the pressure? How do I find peers that I can talk to that are not my co-founders, not my employees, not my family and friends, right? Because there are some topics as a founder you cannot discuss with anyone. So that's the type of environment we're trying to create here.
Cool. Let's maybe continue around and chat about the project as we go.
Yeah, cool.
And so far you funded 50 companies with Delta, or how many to date?
So the story of the Delta is I started like 10 years ago after selling my first company. So it's been around a while. And it's been designed as a platform for kind of my entrepreneurial ideas. And so far we've launched 25 companies from the Delta. But the first one was actually the one that I led as a CEO for like for the last 10 years, wefox. And so I was kind of managing the Delta more as a side gig. So I was really focusing on scaling wefox. We scaled wefox to 800 million revenues. I was CEO of a big company with 1,500 employees. We raised more than $1 billion in venture capital. That obviously was kind of my main job. But what I realized on the job was that the main source of energy was actually my office a few kilometers from here. I put kind of new projects in that I co-founded as a founding investor together with the Delta. And every time like an appointment would kind of be canceled, I would run over and I would spend the time with the young entrepreneurs. I just realized that's my passion. And what you see here basically in the campus is just the continuation of exactly that model. Right, we just said, okay, let's make it a little bit bigger. Let's really scout the very best entrepreneurs I can found companies with. And this is what we've built. This is the result.
Pretty impressive.
We started, this is Bela. Ja, alles gut, wie geht's dir?
Sehr gut.
Yeah, Bela is doing amazing hackathons, probably the best in Europe, I'd say. And
Tech Europe, right?
Tech
That's
Europe,
the initiative.
right.
Yeah.
And these are the type of people we try to host here. Because this is not the typical like startup hub of Berlin. It wasn't, at least when we started 18 months ago.
One thing I can tell you, 4 years ago when I moved to Berlin, at least from my perception, there wasn't as much action and movement and exactly this builder spirit as there is today.
Yeah.
Also around the YouTube stuff and social media stuff I see from Tech Europe, for example, but also from Code University, all the stuff that's happening, especially with applied AI, there's like this sense of optimism, which I only knew from San Francisco, but it's slowly making its way here, and it's incredible to see that you're basically the flagship project, I think, really pushing this.
Right. Yeah, I think we can learn a lot from the mentality from San Francisco. I think the whole topic of proximity, of teaching each other, of successful founders being approachable, of creating these moments of serendipity, of where you walk around and you see like someone you built with years ago, someone you invested in, someone had invested in you, and all of that happening in like 5 minutes, right? And the speed of decision making, the speed of just going into a room, doing like a whiteboard session, And I think that's something that we can definitely learn from San Francisco. And then I think there's a few elements that we can actually build on to make it better. And that's what we're doing. Yeah.
What are these elements that you want to improve on? Where you say, hey, SF is cool, but we can do it better.
Well, I think that, there's this whole foundation on which SF has been built, which is really around, I would say, exploiting childhood trauma. We are looking for people that have a chip on their shoulder and that operate from a place of pain and thus, achieve incredible things, but also scale their pain. And us as VCs, we want them to suffer because that generates the biggest returns, right, financially.
I hear JCal, one of the guys in SF, saying, hey, we're looking for founders with a chip on their shoulder because it makes you work harder, right? And that's the fuel that they're looking for, because then they will follow through and really put in those hours. Right. So you say there's a different way?
Right, and you've got the whole zero introspection, retard maxing, this whole thing. And I believe there's a different way based on European values. And I think that way can be faster, can be better, can be more impactful. But we're here to prove it. So it's obviously not a proven thesis. The chip on the shoulder, dirty fuel thesis is a proven thesis. The thesis of operating from a grounded place, doing a lot of inner work and reflection, and thus being more impactful is something that we're trying to prove. Yeah, and the way that we're trying to prove it is this place is a place where obviously there's a lot of drive, like a lot of people working on their projects, you know, a lot of innovation happening, a lot of hustle, a lot of performance, but then the guy's not here. But this, for example, is a coach/therapist's office. You know, whenever founders feel like the pressure is getting too much or have some, you know, patterns that they see that they're constantly, you know, hitting the wall with, you know, see that they need to work on themselves, you know, this is the place they go, and they lie down on the couch. And I think it's something that's not so visible, but we have, I think, like 10, 12 coaches working here full time, being available for all of the founders. And it's starting to be picked up. So founders realize more and more, okay, this is a place where we work a little bit different and we go deeper, and you can show and bring your full self, and if you do, you're not going to be ridiculed, but you're going to get support. And now more and more people just come and approach me and want help. And like just recently someone came and said, you know, I had this panic attack, you know, I'm under so much pressure with investors, I need help, right? So they know they can come to me, and then I would kind of connect them to the right people to get support.
Important aspect is also, let's say, overall, I mean, that's just one aspect of it, but having psychological safety with the person that you work with or the founding investor you're working with, it's actually better because you create a container for truth also, and in the end you care about truth. The startup is, to me, always a truth-seeking exploration. That's the thing you're in the business in. Try to look for market truth, and I actually this way think it really contributes to better companies. So at least from my personal lived experience, I could subscribe to that thesis, and I'm excited to see how it plays out.
Right, I mean, it's just my personal experience. What is the energy if you operate from the wound versus what's the energy if you operate from a place of groundedness and presence and somehow being connected to the light? It's like the dirty fuel versus the clean fuel comparison. And the clean fuel is much stronger fuel, plus it never goes empty, right? So you have a lot more energy to bring into the world. You also have a lot more energy to be significantly more productive and impactful. So I don't think these are conflicting, you know, paradigms. I think actually you can bring so much more into the world also in the metrics of the old world if you operate on clean fuel. And that's the piece, you know, because I think this whole paradigm of like consciousness, conscious leadership, you know, mindfulness, I think is for good reasons considered weak, considered slow, you know. You have kind of CEOs that are not going to take decisions. They say, I'm going to have to meditate over that, right? And then they come back 2 weeks later and say yes or no, right? So obviously that's not the right way. And that's a little bit of, you know, what has framed this image and makes it appear weak in the currently dominating paradigm.
And let's find a place where we can sit down and chat a bit. I mean, for the ones who are just watching, I can just say, there is so much happening, so many people walking around, working, hanging out everywhere. It's full of life, which I did not know. I have never been here in the floor. I just walked down, like I was at Code a few times, but it's cool to see, you know, this life in the building.
Yeah, we now have 850 entrepreneurs here, and we're going to double that in the next kind of 6 months.
Do you also use this as a way to kind of source deals that you make, or is it just?
So, like for me personally, have just increased my deal flow tremendously. And I mean, I wanted to, and that's my model, kind of co-founding companies as a non-operational co-founder. I wanted to launch like 2 to max 3 companies a year, but in the last 12 months I've launched 5 companies. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's I think testament to the quality of the people here.
What does this deal look like in the early stage? Do you have a standard deal, like sort of YC, but in your way, or?
Yeah, I think so. It's a standard deal. Yeah, I have a standard deal, and the deal is essentially I'm joining as a non-operational co-founder. So I do also bring money, and I also bring support from the whole ecosystem. But essentially, you know, my scarce resource is my time. So I'm investing my time, and we can go and look at some of my companies later. Right, so that's what I'm taking 20% for, my time plus some cash plus the resources that we're providing.
If you look at sort of what you've done with wefox and also how it connects to, let's say, the Delta, you said like 10 years ago already this was quite clear, and now everything starts to grow and really fit together, and also almost to me feels like a masterpiece where all the different moving parts, from the co-working space where you attract new talent to then maybe investing in them, then to making them stronger, to then strengthening your thesis on, you know, how entrepreneurship can feel like and look like. All of this comes together like a master plan. Was it so intentional already, like 10 years ago, that you said this is exactly the path I'm following? Or was it more of an exploration and you stumbled into it and now everything seems so well put together?
No, I think it's like super organic, right? Because essentially I think what we're building here is basically the result of also my very personal journey, and I'm developing, you know, and thus the whole approach and system that we're building here is developing accordingly. And it is really much of the transition from the wound to a much more grounded place to operate and lead from, right? Which is my personal story, right?
Tell me more about that.
Well, you know, I'm like very much aware of the strength of operating from the wound and the type of energy it creates, you know. And I've been operating from that paradigm, and it's been the reason for me to achieve pretty unbelievable things. So we built the fastest fintech unicorn of all times globally. You know, I raised more than $1 billion in venture capital. And why did I do that? Not because I was so inspired by what I was doing, but I couldn't accept a no from anyone. I couldn't accept a no from an employee that didn't want to work for us. I couldn't accept a no from a partner that didn't want to work with us. I couldn't accept a no from an investor that didn't want to invest in us. Every no felt like a huge existential threat. And if you operate like that, then you're like constantly just trying to survive. And you're like a maniac. I was acting like a maniac. Investors would tell me off. I would go into the plane, fly there, and cold walk into their office and like talk to them until I changed their opinion. So it's crazy things that you do if you operate from a place where you're constantly just trying to survive, right? And where you're constantly just trying to fill a void that is so deep that you can never fill it, right? It just, you know, burns you out. And obviously, it is the reason for success. It is the reason why you work harder. It's the reason why you're more persistent. It is the reason why you're grinding harder. It is the reason why you never give up, right? It is all of the, you know, things that set you apart from other people and make you, you know, achieve more. And also, so it's very difficult to get to a point where you say, all right, I'm going to change, because there's a fear associated to that, because obviously that is the piece that made you successful. And I think a lot of people have the awareness about, I'm not doing well, I'm suffering. But at the same time, you know, it is the secret sauce. It is the reason to my success. And it is another existential, even bigger existential threat to lose my mojo. And that's why I don't look within, that's why I don't go to the root, and that's why I continue suffering, right?
I can relate to this a lot. My first company, there were definitely aspects of it, although I had the great privilege to work with a leadership coach very early on. We worked on very personal topics similar to what you also described, really understanding what is like living on purpose, like what is our reason why we're building this company. And I think for many out there, also Björn, my co-founder for Acta, it was just a pure desire to make money and get social recognition, to say I'm the guy who made it. Now, sometimes when I talk to young entrepreneurs though, and also in SF, when I was talking to people, they tend to argue or say, well, you were successful with this approach. Now you preach there's a different way you can be successful. Like, why should I believe this? Because obviously you took the path of maybe getting the fuel through, let's say, suffering and through wounds. What you say to those people who are like saying like, well, you did it this way, so I need to do it the same way, right? This is the proven model. Like, what do you tell these people to inspire them to try this different approach?
I don't tell them to do anything differently. If that's the way that they feel that they have to act, then they have to do it. And then either the pain will become too big and they will face it, or they will realize along the way that it's not the way they want to live their life, and they change early enough. But there is no way to, you know, explain this people have to experience it. So people first need to create awareness about it in the first step, and then with the awareness start doing the work. So what I say, and it's super simplified, but it's really kind of like 4 steps. So the first step is the meditation, meaning you start connecting to yourself and you build this awareness about your emotions, your thoughts, your physical sensations, and you realize I am not my thoughts, not my physical sensations, not my emotions, right? And learn what actually happens, what's the reality, what happens in your body, right? Not what your head is trying to make of it. The second step is that you learn how to engage in the discomfort. So the uncomfortable feelings are there for a reason. They have originally been created in a moment of overwhelm of your nervous system when you were young. And they were designed to protect you from a life-threatening situation. These parts of your nervous system are touched and triggered, and you react like a 3, 4, 5-year-old at the moment of nervous system overwhelm, which also means your emotional intelligence is going down to the age at which it happened. And this feeling is there to protect you. It's telling you, hey, you are in a life-threatening situation. And if you just ignore it, it's like a neighbor that tries to tell you that your house is burning and is on fire. And if you ignore the neighbor, they're going to start throwing stones at your window. And the only way on how to calm down the neighbor is to invite the neighbor in and say, it's not burning. There's no fire here. Relax. And that's the same thing with the uncomfortable negative emotions. It's there for a reason. It's trying to warn you. There's no risk, right? It's confusing the situation with what happened in the past. But the only way to make it go away is to invite it in as a guest and be with it and stay with it. And then the third piece is essentially that the integration and the healing can only happen through relational presence. So you need another nervous system to go with you to the root cause of the nervous system overwhelm, and at which point you have dissociated or disconnected from your environment, and to build relational presence at exactly that point, to tell your nervous system, you are not alone, I'm here, all right? And this is the way that integration and healing starts to happen, and this is also the way that the frozen piece melts and your potential as a human grows. And these frozen pieces that all of us have, they are disconnecting us from our light, so from our calling or purpose. And the more of the work we do, the clearer our purpose becomes, the clearer the connection to our light, the original reason for why we are on this planet becomes. So that's the fourth point, is connecting to your calling. And with, I think these 4 steps, you can become significantly more impactful and successful as an entrepreneur while being a significantly happier person, better father, better husband, better friend. There's very little downsides except that this process is painful at times, right?
Thanks, Mark. Should we maybe walk a bit more?
Yeah, sure.
Party's getting started here. I hear the music. Where are the beers? Where are the cigarettes? No,
this is the rooftop, and here there will be a party later, I guess. So this is kind of the sunset terrace, where we have drinks after work. We do yoga here, and here we have some dinners with kind of investor, founder, operator dinners. So this just opened, right? It's not done yet, but we're turning this into like a Moroccan pool bar. Right now it's football, public viewing. This is essentially the rooftop with a pool. So after the recording, if you want to hang out, you can grab some drinks, and if you want, also take a dip in the pool. And we also have a sauna there.
Wow.
So we're still kind of working out the concept a little bit here, but the idea is
But founders never leave the office
Right.
building, right?
Well, we have no place to sleep, unfortunately, yet, right?
Yet. I need to go a bit into your view on the world. You know, what equity will be valuable, what equity is not valuable. Will the frontier labs take over the world, or is there a lot of stuff to be built? Because a lot of founders are in two camps. One of them being super scared, oh, it's just one update away and then our company is doomed and whatever. There's the other spectrum who says, like, actually applied AI companies are the most valuable thing you can be building right now next to the model labs, and there's a bunch of stuff you can build. What's your view on that, or your thesis? Obviously, it's optimistic. But,
I mean,
want to share a bit?
It's clear that frontier labs have the ability to disrupt anything they want to, right? But at the same time, even with agents, and decentralized kind of workforces and decentralized projects, and I think they're doing a great job. They won't be able to properly focus on any industry. And it's a little bit similar to, you know, Google was always able to build a insurance company or a bank, right? They have never done so. And the reason is regulatory hurdles. So I think what definitely protects you from the frontier labs just, you know, disrupting the space you're in is definitely so regulatory as a moat, kind of. And then, like, the truth is, it's 16% of the world population or so that have ever interacted with AI. Like, obviously in our bubble it's huge, but, you know, rolling out AI into, you know, 99% of the economy that hasn't been impacted by AI yet is such a huge opportunity. And there's, I mean, the value anyways is going to be built in the application and the distribution, either by the frontier labs or by others. And I think there is enough opportunities for others, right? So I think it's the best time to be a founder. The amount of opportunities is immense, and I would not shy away. And obviously the ability to pivot and work under immense uncertainty now becomes like a much more, it was always an important founder skill, but now obviously becomes even more important, right?
Gets a lot easier if you have a good inner foundation.
Right. That's exactly true, yeah. Yeah, so this is Daniel.
What's up?
Hi, wie geht's dir?
Hi, nice. Fine.
So we're just doing a bit of a tour around the campus.
I want to know what you're working on. What does it feel like to live and work?
Oh, this is a good,
right?
setup. I haven't seen it.
It's like that. Look at this.
This is very nice. I love it. Yeah.
So, what are you up to?
Yeah, what are we up to? So, we're recently one of the new ventures from Julian that now invested us. We just got our office here, so everything still looks a bit easy here. But we're Tiny Trace. We're building the first AI native audit company. So if you think about financial auditing here in Germany, a lot of companies have to do statutory audits, and there are people sitting there in the big four which are essentially getting paid six-figure salaries and then manually comparing your financial statements. And we saw that, we got in contact with some experts with Julian, and it's just, we thought this cannot be in the age of AI. So we're sitting down here with a team of auditors, with AI experts on there, and building just the full automated flow for financial audit.
What inspired you to work on this?
Me and my colleague that started this, we came from a PhD in AI, and we worked with Mission KI together, and they had the idea, let's take some PhD students and take their research and put it into business ideas. We worked with them for 8 months. Back then we were like, okay, so what can our AI do? Well, we're good at fact checking and we're good at automating. So we started working in the due diligence sector. Like, okay, when we do mergers and acquisitions, we have the due diligence report. Can we actually make sure the things in there are correct? And we built this solution and won the Mission KI project, where the most promising one, and got into contact with Julian, and he connected us to auditors. With auditors, we saw it's basically the same problem. We need to check if statements are correct, but the data space is limited, it's closed. So it's way easier for our technology. And it was a perfect match, and it's a sector that will completely change the next 5 to 6 years. So it was just the match made in heaven after that.
Awesome. And now, since when are you here at the Delta campus? When did you?
So officially now with Tiny Trace, we're here for 3 weeks, I believe. How long have we worked with Julian? Now for 6-7 months. So with our office now, it's been 2-3 weeks, but at the campus, 6 months working on and off with Julian and just finalizing the team and everything.
And what does it feel like on an average Thursday or Wednesday? Like, what is life like? I mean, there's so many young people walking around. Like,
yeah.
What does this place basically mean to you these days if you look at your life?
Yeah, it's amazing the community that Julian is building up here. And also I don't know if this is mentioned often enough, but the things that we're doing aside from just working. Like
Drinking beers and watching soccer. No.
That is the rooftop thing that's going on. Of course, I mean, there's a pool and there's a sauna and there's a gym downstairs, but there's been like a great psychologist that works with you to make sure that you're also ready to lead a company of the size that we're trying to build with Julian. There's just a team of supportive startups all around you that are all pretty early stage and are kind of suffering for the same early stage founder things, and there's Julian that works with you every week. And I don't know, now that we have also our office here, it just feels big. It feels like you're working on something that is really meaningful in the way here.
Awesome, cool. Thank you so much. Best of luck building, and you should get a proper screen set up soon, although this looks amazing. Have a great day, yeah? Thank you.
So here we have some more companies. So this is Agent F.
Yeah.
Here we're building an AI native ERP system.
Mm-hmm.
Over there is AdHouse. We're building kind of an AI native a real estate broker. And
what's the hardest part about your day right now, or your life?
The hardest?
Yeah.
My kids.
You have two, or?
I have two. Yeah. No, I think like what's the hardest? Like it's obviously, you know, like trying to like be super conscious about the state of how you feel is like challenging, right? Because you're like aware of a lot of, like I'm like a pretty emotional guy. There's a lot of feelings. And not just shrugging it under the carpet, but actually staying with it throughout the day whenever it comes up is like a pretty challenging thing. But that's what I'm practicing. Yeah.
Berlin auf die Eins, BAD1.
Yeah.
Is this your preparation? Become Berlin mayor someday?
Right.
Is it?
No. I mean, it was, we just started it.
I had to ask, you know.
It was more of a coincidence.
Yeah.
Because the mayor of Berlin was walking through the building here, and I told him that kind of the young people here, they are all planning to move to San Francisco because they believe that's the only place where they can, you know, build big things. And I told him we need to change something about it, and we need to keep kind of the young talent. Should we sit here?
Sure.
We need to keep kind of the young talent. We need to keep them in Berlin and build in Berlin. And then I went to his office. And took like 5 high potential young founders under 25 with me, and then we were sitting there and we came up with, all right, we need a lot of, you know, changes in policy and regulation, blah blah blah, right? But I think what we need first and foremost is a change of energy, because for years there's this whole narrative of, you know, Berlin has lost its mojo. Other parts are so much more progressive, cooler, more innovative, and that has led to the situation where saying, okay, I'm not moving to Berlin because it's not cool anymore. And we felt it's super important that we start an initiative that generates a new type of energy, narrative, and then we started the Bad One campaign. We got more than 4,000 founders from Berlin to contribute to what is needed to get Berlin to be the #1 startup ecosystem in Europe. And one of the ideas that was mostly upvoted was we need a conference. So we actually launched a conference within 60 days, the Bad One conference. And we had it like 3 weeks ago here. We had Al Gore opening it. We had 40 unicorn founders. We had investors managing more than 400 billion in assets under management, and there was really this, you know, spark of inspiration. Investors came to me and said, "Whoa, I'm going to come to Berlin more often. I feel the energy here." Founders from all over Europe said, "All right, we're going to look into opening an office here because we feel like this is the place to be." Right? Even talent. So a lot of like top-notch talent from the US started kind of approaching us, talking about wanting to move to Berlin. We just, for one of my portfolio companies, we hired one of the first employees of Amazon that reported to Bezos and then became kind of the CTO of Snapchat. And he moved over to Berlin to start working for our company because, you know, Berlin has a lot to offer. And I think really what's important is that Berlin, as the capital of the largest economy in Europe, plays a big role in the development of, you know, sovereign tech to keep Europe sovereign. And I think as Europe, we can't afford like a weak Berlin. And that's what we've been trying to push over the last few months.
Do you plan 5 or 10 years into the future? Do you have like a distant point where you're like, this is the North Star we're following? Or is it for you more about presence, doing the thing that feels right now and just seeing how it evolves naturally?
Well, I think it is about like just like broadly knowing like what you want to achieve. And I think that's kind of this calling thing that we were talking about before. And then at the same time, it's also just trusting the river of life, right? Which obviously is like hyper uncertain, and for me is like very difficult because like the way I've been operating was the river of life wants to take me there, I want to go there, so I'm spending time and kind of digging the river to go into that direction, which obviously takes a lot of energy and is against the natural state. And now for me to learn just to not force but flow and trust the river and just trust that everything that happens is happening for a reason, and it takes a lot of work for me. And at the same time I do feel that the current of that river is pulling me, and that there is not just my energy but more energy pulling me than my own energy, and that's a good feeling. So yeah, I kind of broadly know where I want to go, but at the same time trying to be very loose about what's next.
Time for one last question. You explained to me that previously, during your early wefox time, there was this dirty fuel. You were driven by a lot of things, and now you seem really changed in the way you approach life, your work, the things you do, the way you approach meaning, the way you think about the human experience more broadly. What was the changing moment? I mean, this doesn't just happen out of nowhere, right? Was there like a moment in your life that really inspired to kind of look elsewhere for meaning and these answers?
I think I've always had like a pretty strong connection to the divine, like even as a small little child. I also didn't quite know how to put it. And I think like one of the pieces that I'm learning is you can have a superpower that can be triggered from when you are narrow and tight. But you can have that same superpower also when you are grounded and present. So the superpower is not the result of you being narrow or tight. It is just a trigger for using it. So what I'm seeing more and more is that I have a certain superpowers. I'm not losing these superpowers, but I can access them from a grounded and present place rather than from where I used to access it, which was a very tight place. But I've always felt like a very strong connection to the divine and like a big calling, right? And like it's very strong energy. But now I'm trying to just, use it in more sustainable, kind of impactful ways, yeah.
Well, Julian, thank you so much for showing us around, also having a view in your mind and the things that you're learning and trying to bring into Berlin and the world more broadly. It's pretty impressive to see what happened here in just the last, let's say, 1 or 2 years, and also the pace at which you're trying to progress without forcing it too much, as it seems. So thanks so much for spending time today with us. And if anyone is interested, we're going to link everything down below where you can find more about the Delta, probably how you can also maybe join here if you're in Berlin, drop by and start your company and start on the inner journey. So thank you so much for today.
Thanks.